Welcome to Mrs. Lee's Chemistry Academy. Today we're going to focus on reaction rates. This is tied to the learning objective from College Board 4.1 that the student is able to design and or interpret the results of an experiment regarding the factors such as temperature, concentration, and surface area that may influence the rate of a reaction. Chemical kinetics is study of molecular reactions that occur over time. It is based on the collision model that chemical reaction occurs when two reactant molecules collide with sufficient kinetic energy to break the old bonds and form new ones. The rate is measured by the amount of reactants converted to products as a function of time. And it is expressed as change in concentration, meaning change in molarity per unit time, and it could be per second, per minute, per hour, per day, etc. When we look at kinetics in our everyday life, the ozone depletion in the Antarctic due to catalyzed destruction by chlorine, the catalytic converter in our car's exhaust system that eliminate pollutants in the exhaust. The enzyme catalyzes the digestion of protein. Explosion of flammable coal dust in mines or flour in mills. Half-life of radioactive isotopes in a nuclear power plant accident, medical applications of radio tracers, and carbon dating of ancient artifacts are all of concern to us. The rate of reaction, as the reaction goes, reactants are converted into products. So concentration of reactant decreases as the concentration of product would increase. Now here's a diagram showing the decrease in the concentration of reactant over time, because as more reactant molecules are used to make products, there will be less left to collide with one another. Therefore, the rate will slow down. And here, the rate of producing a product will be increasing as more reactants are used to make products. In a reaction where A reactant is converted into B product, the rate of disappearance of A is expressed as negative delta A, change in the concentration of A over concentration of time, and the negative is to mean disappearance. And it also can be expressed as the rate of the appearance of the product, change in concentration of B over time. So the rate can be either or. The negative sign only indicating the disappearance of the concentration, and usually when we do calculation, we ignore the negative sign. Instantaneous rate. Because rate is not constant, and we therefore have to measure the rate at a given point in time, we call that instantaneous rate. We measure it from the slope of a tangent drawn to a point on the curve. And if you look at this diagram here, we have a curve going downhill of concentration versus time. If we want to know the instantaneous rate at a given time, let's say 90 seconds, we would go to that point and draw a tangent to the point. And then we would determine the slope of rise over run. And in this case, the rise will be changed from 2 molarity to 0 molarity on the concentration, and the run will be between 0 and 220 seconds, and therefore the rate is calculated as 0.909 molarity per second. In a balanced reaction, the rate can be expressed as the disappearance of A over time divided by A moles, or the disappearance of B over time divided by B moles, or the appearance of product C divided by C moles, and the appearance of product D divided by D moles. Practice problem number 1. Given the reaction, 2 moles of dinitrogen pentoxide converted into 4 moles of NO2 and 1 mole of O2 and given the rate of decomposition is 4.2 times 10 to the negative 7 molarity per second. What is the rate of appearance of NO2? Now, from the stoichiometric mole ratio, we know that as 2 moles of N2O5 disappear, 4 moles of NO2 appear. Therefore, the rate of appearance of NO2 is that of the rate of disappearance of N2O5 times the mole ratio of 4 over 2, which becomes 8.4 times 10 to the negative 7 molarity per second. There are 4 factors affecting reaction rates, one being the phase and surface area of reactants. Now, if we have ions ready to collide in solution, the time we mix the solution together, we form precipitate right away. So that's a very fast reaction. Or in heterogeneous reaction involving dissolving a solid in a solution, if we decrease the particle size, we will increase the rate because we are increasing the total surface area of contact and therefore increasing the probability of successful collisions. For example, if you have a cup of hot coffee and you want to sweeten it by putting some sugar in it, you would rather put powdered sugar than a lump of sugar too, because it will dissolve much faster because it has greater contact surface area. Another factor will be increasing concentration or the pressure of reactants. As we increase the number of moles in a reaction vessel, then the chance of these molecules colliding becoming much greater, leading to successful collision and the reaction to form products. Or if we increase the pressure and then we decrease the volume of a reaction vessel containing gas molecules, then they come much closer together and have a higher rate of collision. Another factor that would affect rate is temperature. Because when we increase the temperature, we actually increase the average kinetic energy of the particles. Therefore, there will be a greater number of particles with the necessary kinetic energy to overcome the energy barrier. Rate is usually doubled for every 10-degree increase for biological reactions. Or the last one will be to use a catalyst. A catalyst will stabilize the transition state and provide an alternative pathway with a lower activation energy for the reaction, and therefore both the rate of forward and reverse reactions are increased. So here's a diagram. To the left, you can see the red curve representing the uncatalyzed reaction, and the blue curve, the smaller one, representing the catalyzed reaction. Therefore, the activation energy is much lowered, providing an alternative pathway for the reaction. Or if you look at the right-hand side diagram, the distribution diagram, the green portion representing the uncatalyzed activation energy, but with a catalyst, the activation energy is actually lowered. Now you can have the red portion of the molecules also participating in the reaction. There are many experimental techniques to determine rate. The first one is increasing surface area. For example, if we are going to react calcium carbonate with hydrochloric acid, it's better to use powder form than marble chips because the reaction will go much faster. Now the second one is measuring the volume of gas produced. In the reaction between magnesium metal and hydrochloric acid to form hydrogen gas, we can attach a gas syringe to the container so that the volume of hydrogen gas evolved can be measured over time as the plunger is pulled back by the evolution of hydrogen gas. The third one will be the change in the mass. For example, in the reaction between calcium carbonate and hydrochloric acid, we can place the reaction vessel on a balance, and then we can record the decrease in the mass as the calcium carbonate and hydrochloric acid are consumed, making CO2 gas. Another one will be measuring the change in absorbance using calorimetry and Beer's law, because as concentration of the color product increases, such in this case, as HI decomposes to form hydrogen iodine and iodine is colored, we can measure the absorbance at a particular wavelength as a function of time. And therefore we can track the rate of the appearance of iodine by using absorbance. Another one will be change in conductivity. If we have a reaction that involves a lot of ions like bromate and bromide in acidic medium to form molecule bromine and water, we put some kind of electrical conductivity measurement instrument in it in solution, and we can see a decrease in the conductivity, meaning the measurement of the rate of the reaction. Or we can use the clock reaction, which is very popular in most laboratories, that we measure the appearance of iodine by the sudden appearance of a purple color in the presence of starch, and then we can use a stopwatch to count the time it takes for the appearance of the purple color. And then finally, there's another one that we can measure the change in temperature. Let's say we are mixing sodium thiosulfate with hydrochloric acid, and that forms the sulfur as a precipitate. We can mix the batches in various temperature portions, and then the time that the X, which is placed on a piece of paper underneath the flask, would disappear because it's being marked by this, scarred by this appearance of the precipitate sulfur, which will then make the X disappear, will obscure it. Practice problem number 2. The rate of reaction between calcium carbonate and hydrochloric acid is followed by measuring the change in the volume of CO2 over time, explain the shape of the curve, and what condition from the data chart will produce the fastest rate of reaction. Now, as you can see, the formation of CO2 increases over time because this is due to the consummation of the calcium carbonate and also the hydrochloric acid becoming more dilute. Now, when we look at the data chart, we want to pick a trial that would have a lot of surface contact area, so that could be 1, 3, or 4, and we want it to be more molecules of HCl, so that could be narrowed down to trial 1 or 2, and that would have a higher temperature. So I would pick trial number 1 because it has powder form, it has large number of moles of HCl, and it would have the highest temperature. So let's recap of what I just said earlier. The rate of formation of CO2 increases with time because calcium carbonate gets consumed and the acid becomes more dilute. And trial 1 would be the one that I picked because it gives you the fastest rate, as it is conducted at a higher temperature than trial 4, and it is in powder form to produce greater contact surface area than in trial 2, and there are more moles of HCl than in trial 3. Practice problem number 3. Which graph below represents the energy distribution for the particles of a gas when temperature is increased from T1 to T2? Now, at higher temperature, there's greater kinetic energy. So the average kinetic energy would tend to increase, and there's also a wider spread of the molecules. Therefore, I would pick C. Now, I would never pick B because the population becomes greater, and it's supposed to be maintained the same, so it wouldn't be B. And in A, the distribution curve did not get spread out more, so I would pick C. What have we learned today? We learned that reaction rate is defined as change in reactant or product concentration over time. That the relationship between rate and reaction stoichiometry, and the method used to determine instantaneous rate, the 4 factors affecting reaction rate, and the various experimental techniques one can employ to measure rate relative to changes in surface area, concentration, and temperature. From the team of MLCA, we would like to thank you for watching our video, and we hope to see you again next time.